Okay. Um, so yes, hello. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, Josh, for the great intro, and uh, I'm also happy that to see so many lovely people joining and familiar faces. So yes, I'm going to be talking about living in the in-between, how we are blending physical and digital. And I went back and looked at sort of where I first started uh, doing, I guess precursors of this work, to kind of like intro where we're coming from. Uh, I pulled some things from 20 years ago, when I started to get interested in this combination of physical space and digital artwork, combining finger movements with affecting typography and whatnot, and this machine in the center was a screaming hot machine back when I started, um, and now it's a museum piece. But years later, this kind of thinking led to creating Red Paper Heart with some like-minded, amazing individuals. Where we've been doing work for since 2011, and our work is most simply we create interactive installations that evoke joy and amazement, and we do this type of work by using digital arts to transform the physical world, and that can be an incredibly gratifying way of working, because of the expressive potential of uh, digital media. Offers so many possibilities, and ultimately that combination creates ideas for new kinds of experiences, new things that people can do that they've never been able to do before. And that's always the goal, because ultimately it's interesting to pursue this, but it's also gets to why anyone would go to an experience, why people would leave their house and go out into the world and seek out something, is often to experience something new, something potentially life-changing, and that's the space that we want to exist. Uh, we make this work for uh, client agencies and brands, and we're often invited to do work at big moments, moments where clients need to connect emotionally to people, and to convey ideas through feelings, and we find that this work is very helpful to do that. Behind all the work that you see today or on Red Paper Heart is by a collaborative team of amazing people, some of whom are on the call today. Hello, everyone. Um, and there's some action shots of us working, because no one likes portrait photography at Red Paper Heart, so you get action shots. But we are a group of artists, designers, coders, producers, and we do this work by working collaboratively with each other. Um, and today I'm going to be talking a lot about something that we've always kind of been interested in, but it's become like more of a focus in recent years, which is, you can call it what you want. Maybe it's mixed reality, blended reality. I recently heard extended reality as well, but um, the I guess what picture is with mixed reality and all these other terms is uh, things like the new Apple Pro Vision and Magic Leap and device related mixed reality. But uh, there's a lot to I think this work is wonderful and inspiring, and there's lots of ideas that we can pull from. But as an experienced designer, I of course want to immediately take off those devices, and I want to find ways of mixing reality without those devices, that we could take people to other worlds, but worlds where you can uh, breathe the oxygen there. And uh, so mixing reality without headsets can is messier. It's not as straightforward, clean as with an AR helmet, but but the interest for us is that we can be creating experiences that the others can share, that you could have an experience and stand right next to somebody, make eye contact, and really belong to a group while you're doing something, and that is no small difference. That is actually why, in many ways, that I'm interested in doing this work is that sense of connection. Um, One thing to understand about mixed reality is that since I may say it a lot in this talk, that it's kind of an umbrella term. It spans a lot of different technologies, so it's not a singular thing that it contained. AR is something that exists within the mixed reality continuum. And the other interesting thing about this is that this was a diagram made by an economist in 1994, and I had expected to find that this was, done in Microsoft or something, but go economists. For us, the the sort of bent, which the lens that we see mixed reality is effectively, any kind of like interactive experience where you can get to the level where you accept the digital world around you as coexisting in your physical world. Um, and that is not to say that you're fooled by what's around you. Like you don't believe that this digital world really exists in your space, but that there's a suspension of belief. And I actually think that that's makes it more interesting, is that there's a participation, a suspension of disbelief, almost like theater, with that theater sets are built out of cardboard, but if done correctly, if done with a sense of artistry, you participate in the story. You're a knowing accomplice in the illusion, and I like that dynamic. But to give you an example, we in recent years have been working with various ways of mixing realities. Let's say this was a project where it was a larger project that I won't get into, but the specific aspect was a physical flower vase where the petals are digital, and reimagining that classic reception desk where there would be a bouquet of flowers there. Somehow there's always a vase of flowers at a reception desk. And here was a chance to reinvent that, where the petals were actually these digital petals of glass, but they were also simultaneously calendar items. Each one uh, was, an element of the day, and we used LG transparent screens to make this illusion. But of course, uh, we love this connection that's connecting this one simple thing that everyone accepts, flower vase, to this virtual space of digital petals. And once you make that connection, it's almost like a new little reality forms, because of course you're connecting something, but you inevitably change it. So as soon as petals become digital, it opens up possibilities of things like turning them into calendar items, but it also opens up new possibilities of what you could do with the digital components, like what happens if you pour water into the vase, and new metaphors get mashed, and often ideas come out of that. And sometimes it really does feel like alchemy. Like, not only are we making these connections, but the connections that we make and the way that we make them become a source of the ideas. We also are probably our earliest example of where I feel like we mixed reality was this project that we did for, um, let's say, a company with an AR device, and we were working with them on how best to introduce their product to the world at an event. And we came up with this. We started discussing how we had all had kind of transcendent, magical experiences out on the water in boats, and what if we use that as a platform to talk about how that we're hovering over the threshold of incredible possibilities. Um, and the experience that came out of that was that people would be able to row through digital water with real physical rowboats. Um, and so they would feel like the digital water was real water, except for you could also paint with them. So the oars were water oars, but they're also paintbrushes, which was that magical combination for us. And to do this work in real life, we're building all the components. So we're developing aesthetics that would feel like water and feel like painting. On the digital side, we're working with sensors on not only knowing the position of the oars, but knowing how they feel and people's expectations of when they row a boat, what's going to happen, like how people's actions feel. We often use projection mapping as a way to get things into an environment that don't feel like they're some separate element, but that they're part of where you are. And with every project, there's a little bit of old Hollywood magic that we're inspired by new technology often, but we're equally inspired by some old illusions like scrims and Pepper's Ghosts and things like that to really integrate things into physical space. Um, and we brought this project fully to working prototype. In a studio to that ultimately, even though this project didn't get fully made, this was a wonderful experience for us to go through. And the part where it becomes mixed reality is that we then have, and you'll see this in a second, is that we then have, as people are rowing and painting colors into the water, then new like life forms begin to emerge from the water. Oh, oh no. Why did that happen? Hold on.
And then we need to go back to that setting that we did before.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, I'll cut this out of the recording, but I think remember, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so the audio's not coming through. It's okay. All right. Yeah, sorry, I'll turn on the audio will be ready for the next video. All right, so but I'll just move on and the to the next aspect of that sometimes these blendings of realities are not just a magic trick, but they actually make the subject matter feel more real, more visceral, something on an emotional level. And we use that on a recent project where we worked with an agency called Advocate, and they wanted they were working with a client, Ecolab, which is a company that's their whole industry is water. They water purification and basically a million other things with water. And they were celebrating their 100th year, and they wanted an experience that conveyed the power of water. And Advocate was building an entire narration, extolling the importance of this resource, and they wanted an accompanying immersive experience where it maximized the power of water. And we and we felt that a realistic video of water wasn't going to do it, because what would make the subject matter feel more powerful is if the water had an awareness of people in the room and an awareness of the words that were being spoken. And so if we created the water dynamically, that we would be able to have the subject matter flowing around people and enveloping them in a way that it made it feel special. Uh, and to do this, we needed to create real-time water effects, which so we began researching how to do that in a way that water could do the things that we were asking it to do. And we started with particle systems, and we ultimately realized that some of the advances in then Unreal's fluid simulations were really going to be useful to control this water in real time in a way that felt powerful, um, and also afforded us a chance for to create these like virtual water tanks around people, and that people would be driving the forces that would create the waves. So this is some of our footage process, and then ultimately how it would translate into the room. And there was so much. We realized that it's one thing to say that we're going to create water, but it's another thing when you start to get into what kind of water. How do you convey power, and what feels right and what feels tonally on with the narration that's being spoken. And another aspect of Ecolab's uh, work is that they don't just use water, but they use water in all its states, that each has an important function. So the three states of matter being gas, liquid, and solid, that we would then have this water experience span the gamut of water from gas, solid, and liquid. And this also brought up questions of like, what is mist? What makes something feel like gas, water, like water mist, and not smoke and steam. And so ultimately we arrived at a place where it felt like gas was separating into little droplets that made it feel like water. And ultimately the end stage of our research was to get to a place where the water states conveyed what we wanted, and that they afforded opportunities to flow around people in interesting ways. And on to the installation.
From cooling data centers to treating water, my energy is harnessed every day in every way. But that energy has costs for business and the planet. Truly knowing me is finding my efficiency, innovating to save my energy and your money. All to protect what is vital.
So there are the spaces, and there is digital, but there's also the people, what people are doing in space, which makes things different than devices, is that people are doing all sorts of incredible things, walking around spaces and connecting what they're doing or what they are to the spaces around them uh, can be an interesting connection to make. It's an interesting string to connect. And we thought of this idea, actually had this idea years ago, but with advances in AI, we were able to bring this to life recently, which was to basically have the space around you reflect your clothing choices. That you could see yourself and everyone who's ever walked through a space uh, have their cloth become on the walls around them. And initially, this was a very difficult concept to make, because you would have to teach a computer about how to form patterns, and uh, how artwork on t-shirts that's obscured by lighting and folds would become a pattern to be generated. But that has actually been recently is a lot easier now. And everyone has certainly messed with Midjourney, developing aesthetics, but we're of course looking for this AI to happen in real time, because with experiences, you have to have results quickly. So it was an interesting extra step to not only generate patterns from what people are wearing, but also immediately transfer them to the walls around you. We started developing like how those patterns would look, how far away from the original pattern they would dream up, so that it wasn't like they were copying you, but making patterns inspired by what you're wearing. But to really feel like the space is of you, and this and you are of the space. We came to this idea that you're wearing cloth shirts, and then the walls around you would be made out of cloth as well. So we created this fabric system that would take on artwork that was inspired by what you're wearing. And in addition, we felt that it was important to have the terminology that was being fed into the AI appear on the wall, on the cloth as well, to let users into the process to help them participate in this experience, that know what was happening. It seems that every new technology that we start to use offers us a new potential to draw another string connection to bridge the gap between physical and digital. It becomes a new plaything, and it's not that the success is the amount of connections, but the types of connections that you can make to grow that new extended reality. But probably what we've recently discovered is that sometimes just one connection is all you need if if that is done very, very well. And it's often easier to associate yourself with what's happening around you if there is that one connection. And we had this idea on, what if we create this generative art piece in a space that would be showing artwork, but the connection would be that the light space of the piece of art would be the same light as is in the room, and it's the same idea of how, like, an oil painting in a room might look different in the morning versus nighttime. People might feel differently about it over the course of the day, and it's because it's hit with this light, and the colors might look different over the course of the day. But digital artwork is often the same, or unaware of what's happening in the space. And wouldn't that be a way of really making a piece of art really feel connected? And would it actually make it feel more important that way? So we developed this idea that we would connect it to a light source, and you'd be able to control the light source. And of course, one important piece of this is actually the light itself. So much of the character and connection that you can make with a digital world is based on what you can hold in your hand. That's such an emotional connection. And we talk a lot about how people have these memories of objects as they hold them, and uh, it leads you down certain paths. So even though picking a light bulb for this project should be a really quick thing, it's something that we think about a lot, because it becomes a basis of that connection. Like, if you had something entirely different, a different light source, it would have an entirely different feel to it. If you're holding a torch, it'd be a different kind of experience. But what we were after was something that felt like something that would be in the studio, something that you wouldn't necessarily interact with, so that when you grabbed it and moved it around, that what you saw would be that much more surprising. Um, and what you would see is these phrases appear on the wall dynamically through generative typography that's made of um, actually city maps, because the shadows that are cast in cities every day that change over the day. So we use those as a basis of typography, and also for a playground for this light to exist. And so we started building how the type would work, and how lighting would work once we were projecting this onto the wall. And we needed to be able to move through a number of phrases. So we worked on transitions and lighting, and the lighting that you see in these tests is very dramatic, because we knew that we were projecting it onto the wall where things would brighten up quite a bit. And this is our first projection test where we saw this start to come to life, and we're encouraged about how this is going to work. And I know that everyone on this call is incredibly tech savvy, but we did when we shared this with some people, they did ask, whether there was a physical sculpture there, and there isn't. There's just projection. But it's that connection, it's that powerful light source that feels like what you're doing is casting these shadows. So all of the work that I've been showing today, and the work that we've done here, is really about creating these moments of expression. That's the opportunities that we take the things that we accept about our physical world, or maybe forget about, or the things that feel mundane, and suddenly they become tools of expression. And that's where the excitement and reward comes from. And in another sense, the other reason why we're drawn to this form of mixed reality is that if you are blending technology into an environment seamlessly, in some cases, you create experiences where people don't have to think about technology. Often technology is this alien spaceship that you just land in a space, and that can be, in some cases, what you want, and in other cases, it detracts from the messages that you're conveying. And sometimes it can be incredibly useful to have technology kind of melt away. And as we kind of look to the future of different things that we could do, it's those small touches that I think are really the most inspiring for us, is the ability to change just the shadow of an object, or you take a sundial and make the shadow into a canvas for art, instead of just a tool of telling the time, and but have everything else be what we're familiar with, and just change that one thing. It's almost like, when I think about how architects approached this, it's this, it made me think of Frank Lloyd Wright, and how he would build buildings in harmony of nature, that we have an opportunity here with, as technology gets more advanced, is that we could be looking at the digital spaces that we're designing, and we could come up with futures where there's a more harmonious connection between digital artwork and the spaces that we live and work in. And that's what I got for you.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Zander. That's great. Let's open it up to some questions. I think there were a couple of questions that sort of floated up during the presentation. Do you want me to ask that one about, I guess there was a question about the one where it was mapping the clothing to the physical environment. How did you account for sort of multiple people being in that space? You know, how, you know.
Great. Okay, so which
Oh, yeah, there was the one where it would take a image of the clothing and then map it into the environment. So what did you do if there was like multiple people in the space? If it was you know, if there were multiple outfits, as it were.
Yeah. So that's and often we do this where there's a conceit where you have to stand in a specific place,
Hmm.
and the camera would read your shirt, and we're actually capturing basically a specific part of the shirt. We would use skeletal tracking to identify where your shirt is on your body, and then it would take just this area. And when we do that, we highlight something on the floor that tells you that it's a suggestion that if you stand here, it becomes active, and if you're otherwise wandering around, it does not record. But we also built in this thing where you'd be able to play with the cloth if you were elsewhere. So you could kind of engage with the room as cloth, but you could take over the room in a specific spot, which is, you know, like it's at first we have to make conceits like that, but we can kind of also, it helps where the room isn't constantly frenetically changing, so it can kind of be a benefit for the eyeballs as well. So
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, before anybody asks any more questions, I got some stuff I'll throw in there. You know, one of the things I wonder is like you and I both kind of came up in like Flash, you know, and like probably we both, I'm sure we both could write like a fair amount of action script. And I kind of wonder like how deep are you personally in the code these days? Like how technical have you sort of remained in this process?
not even at all. I mean, I think I always did code in school and early days in working as a means to an end. I would usually have ideas that I wanted to like in the first slide that I showed, which had like a certain amount of schoolwork in there, where I'd be borrowing technology in order to read the colors of people's shirts and do something specific about it. But I never actually enjoyed coding. I enjoyed the possibilities of what you could do. So the second that I met people like Daniel Scheibo, who's on this call, like I knew that I should not program.
Didn't have to do it anymore.
It should not be me.
Yeah, I love it. Just out of curiosity, what's the tech stack that you guys are working with these days? You're doing some Unreal Engine, I guess, you know, what are the tools?
A lot of Unreal recently, just because of the visual potential. We still do a lot of Unity, and every so often we will still do some Cinder. But yeah, I mean, it differs per projects. I mean, we'll do WebGL sometimes if it's something that also, we did one project where it had to exist as a website and an installation simultaneously, and so we built the whole thing in WebGL. So it really depends on the project, but I mean, I guess maybe Unreal is our new favorite toy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I love it. I love it. You know, you know, we had actually talked a little bit before this call about the difference between like designers and artists. and like where you get your provocations and where you get your ideas. And you know, designers have obviously often responding to a brief. Um, so like I wonder, like where do you get your ideas? Is it that your ideas kind of come from the brief or come from the condition, or is it that you have a sort of, are you building sort of a library of concepts so that you then, you know, find good application in a project brief?
Uh, it often comes from an emotional message that a client wants to convey. So, um, but that might bring up something we've always wanted to do. So we have a hamper of ideas that we've always wanted to do for our entire lives. And then our best case scenario is that what a client wants matches up with something that we've always wanted to experience. And we found that that's a really potent combination because it's like wish fulfillment.
Yeah,
And if it's something that we've always wanted to do, there's a chance that other people would want to experience it as well. And it's something that we would put a lot of energy and thought into doing. But it's not to say that we don't sort of just try to, you know, force something we'd want to do onto a brief. I mean, a lot of the inspiration does come from um, the brief, and the best briefs, of course, are ones that have been boiled down to that central, simple premise of like something like convey the power of water. Like that's such a wonderful thing to work with, as opposed to a very complicated multi-tiered brief that can be difficult.
yeah, I love it. So there was actually just a very specific question. Is that last project that had the light, is that on your website, or where can people see that?
Um, it might not be, but it will be. It's called Reading Light, uh,
Okay.
uh, and it's on Vimeo.
Okay. All right. So maybe I'll try to share that out. I'll put that up on, you know, one of the social channels or something. Cool. All right. Let's see. Any other questions? Oh, good. They're not asking questions. I can just jump. I just can keep. Oh, Dan. All right. Here we go. Dana, you got a question you want to ask?
Sure. What types of skills and experiences that you've collected do you feel have made you kind of successful in this space and in like reaching people in this emotional sense?
Um, I um, I feel like uh, I really do like to gather tons of skills together. Like I feel like at one point I was lamenting to somebody years ago about how um, I can be good at a lot of things but not great at anything. And somebody once told me, well, you could just be great at putting a bunch of those good things together. So so I feel like that's usually what we do is to pull in multiple skills because I've done so many different things in my life. So um, you know, I think I draw on a lot. I mean, I draw a lot on animation. That's something that I love so much is how things move. I am a people observer. I'm kind of like a wallflower. I don't talk a lot, but I observe a lot, and I feel like that's a very useful thing in experience design is knowing a sense of how people perceive and maybe an understanding on what makes people comfortable to interact um, and I think those are my most valuable skills. But we're a team, and every skill that I don't have, my team has. There's some wonderful programmers that every creative coder on our staff is very visual. So the I love to see where they can take ideas that maybe start with something that the designers create, but they get improved in the course of turning them into generative applications because the coders aren't simply just taking what they're given. They're infusing themselves into it. So and there's so many skills. I feel like experiential design is this just like incredible meeting point between different skills. I could probably say like 50 more skills, but many, Dana.
I love it. Timothy Smith had a question.
Yeah, hi. I'll come off my camera here. Great presentation, Xander. Thank you so much. This is like really creatively inspiring for me. I did have a question in terms of like client relations, and when you get to that edge of the cliff with the client on the creative journey, how do you convey to them, or are they willing to follow you down this like really extreme path? And how do you instill that trust to them that you're like, okay, we got this, you trust us, we trust you, we're going to do this? How do you get them to that point where they relinquish? Because in my experience, sometimes when you push things to the edge, there's a friction point, and getting over that friction point is a challenge.
Yeah, I think the we develop that trust a number of different ways. I think in some cases we've worked with the client on a number of projects already, and they're willing to take things to the next level. I think that our work is a level of trust as well, that we've done maybe some crazy stuff in the past and it's worked. And that like raises the general sense of trust that people have with us before they come to us. Um, and many times people come to us game for some adventurous work already, so that when they're reaching out, they know that they're not going to get a very like standard experience. But often, we do our best to explain the importance of what we're doing and the ideas that we want to do. And sometimes it gets through, and many times it doesn't. I mean, there's plenty for every client that's taken the leap and trusted us. There's obviously ideas that have fallen through the cracks. I don't think that we do anything particularly special in that department of convincing, but I think we just try to show them how it's going to look and how it's going to act as much as possible. The worst thing would be to have an idea shot down that it's because they didn't understand it. So we always try to be incredibly clear about the work that we present.
I love it. All right, I think we have time for one last question. I'll ask it. I'm just going to put, if you guys have any additional questions, and I saw there were some additional questions, just email them to me at josh@bluecadet.com, and Xander and I can kind of get those answered for you probably offline and send it back to you. But I think this was a good wrap-up question, which is like, if you had like sort of a dream project, or if there was like is there a thing in your mind that you want to, manifest in a very LA way? What would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I have I have this deck uh that of all the ideas that I've wanted to make real, and it's meant to be like an inspiring deck, and sometimes I open it and I'm inspired, and sometimes it's also the land of lost toys, where it sometimes makes me sad. But I mean, there's so many. I had the reason why I showed the sundial thing is that's always one that I've wanted to make, and it's never happened. It's made out of transparent screens, so that when the sun hits it, it creates these dynamic shadows, and that people would be able to walk through it and change the works. That would be like the idea du jour, but there is also this thing that for years we were trying to make this project called Hug Mountain, which was based on an old project where people would jump on a giant teddy bear, and we wanted to bring that back into an experience where you could hug anything in the whole experience, and then we would examine all the aspects of that, like in different ways, both digitally and physically. And but yeah, there's just I want to do it all. I want to do it all.
I love it. I love it. I'm putting Hug Mountain out in the universe for you. I think that's it. I think that's it. I love it. I love it. Zander, thanks so much. This was really fantastic. It was like incredibly inspiring. Thanks so much for joining us. I love the work. You know, keep it up, man, and let us know how we can help as a community, whatnot. Any sort of parting words?
No, I mean, just that I see a lot of the comments and questions, and I feel like I might have missed a lot of things that people wrote. So yeah, absolutely. If you have questions, yeah, let Josh know, or let me know, and happy to chat.
All right, awesome. Well, and then thank you everybody for joining us today. Hope to see you guys on a future spaces. We have next week's a busy one. We have a webinar and a workshop, so it can be a very future spaces week for you. But anyway, have a wonderful weekend. Have a great one, everyone. Thanks again, Zander. Hopefully I'll talk soon.
Okay.
See y'all. Bye.
Bye.